Are you surprised? Because I'm not. It's that time again. Today, we are performing neurosurgery on Ben Carson's chapter. Ben Carson is such an interesting figure in the political sphere. A former neurosurgeon turned presidential candidate in 2016. Then he backed out of the race because he realized he was stepping on a lot of toes. But that's okay. You know, in a different world, I would have probably not voted for Ben Carson. Anyway, let's overview his career. He was a former neurosurgeon turned celebrity turned political leader. He was in the charge of housing and urban affairs. He has one of the most prolific and popular black conservative voices out there. Um, and he also is on the towing the line with the transphobia that is very popular amongst the party, stating that transgender use of homeless shelters, that he warned that San Francisco is going to be raided by, quote, big hairy men to infiltrate homeless shelters for women. This is a very funny remark because the homeless shelters and the homeless situations in California are already co-ed without worry of transgender people. So if this shit's already co-ed, so the gender politics never really worked with that comment. But it's worth mentioning that he is, you know, amongst the rest of the Republicans, a very transphobic asshole. Um, Other than that, he is he. I feel like there's something up his sleeve. I feel he's a very smart man. He is a neurosurgeon. But when he was in office, the other employees called him directionless, and he removed words like inclusive from documents post Obama. So let's not. We've already given him an introduction. Let's just hop into his hellscape of a chapter. The U.S. Department of Urban Housing Development administers of web and federal programs with mandates to support access to home ownership and affordable rental housing. Uh, Relative temporary housing, instably homeless persons, preserve stable inventory of public housing units, and enforce mandates with powers to settle compliance of matters ranging from housing quality standards to discrimination cases. It is interesting that he kind of puts homelessness in the back burner. He has said before that homelessness is a state of mind. As a former houseless person, I have to ask the question, bitch, what are you talking about? If going out there sleeping in the cold, in the rain, is a state of mind and not a physical problem, then what the fuck's your job about? You know what I mean? So, he got bullet points. These authors and these bullet points, it's like a grocery list of things. Reset HUD. This effort should specifically include a broad reversal of the Biden administration's persistent implementation of coercive progressive ideologies across the department's programs. He got a problem. He got a problem with that diversity. I don't know what it is. Implement action plan across both processes and people. This plan should include both immediate regulation authority to political appointees and urgent implementation of administrative regulatory actions within respect of HUD policy and program eligibility. Excuse me. Program eligibility. He's got me burping. It's okay. You're probably asleep by now. Reverse HUD's mission to creep over nearly a century of program implementation dating from the department's New Deal forbearers. What? Mission creep? I hate this terminology. HUD's new political leadership will re-examine federal government's role in housing markets and nation to consider whether it is time, quote, for reform or renewal that transfers department functions to separate federal agencies, states, and localities. Here it is. This is the beginning of the shit that is happening in the other chapters where they have this department, but they want to break off the responsibilities of this department because they see it as an overstep and give these responsibilities to either other departments or local bodies. So it is what it is. HUD was created by the Housing Urban Development Act of 1965, and since then it has administered several programs that is like such as the Home and Finance Agency, which proposed a budget of $71.9 billion and 8,326 full-time employees that remain the largest government agency charged with implementing federal housing policy. In addition to this, headquarters in Washington, D.C. has 10 regional offices as well as field offices and centers to implement specialized operational enforcement responsibilities. HUD program offices also interface with various networks implementing organizations and locally catered housing agencies, federal, state, and local government judicial bodies, such as private industry participants and mortgage lenders. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development shall delegate the authority to various entities across an array of HUD programs. Secretary also oversees the Office of Deputy Secretary, Hearings, Appeals, and small town business disadvantaged business utilization, and the Center for Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships, Office of Secretary, also comprises a team of politically appointed positions and career staff. Each of the following offices should be headed by political appointees, except for where otherwise noted. Give me specifics. No? Okay. Sure. Office administration. A chief administration officer, responsibilities of the chief human capital officer, office. He's just listing the offices he wants to keep. Oh boy. That's gonna be, oh god. Okay. Office of the Chief Financial Office of Public Affairs, one sentence. Office of Congressional. Okay. Now, I'm going to go straight to the Office of Public and Indian Housing because this is where shit gets interesting, and he actually has a whole ass paragraph. Headed by the Senate-confirmed AS or PDAS, the PIH administrators public housing, tenant-based rental assistance programs, as well as authorities for Native American and Native Hawaiian housing assistance and low guarantee programs under the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act. Tenant-based rental assistance represents a major portion of HUD's directionary budget. HUD describes its housing choice voucher program as, quote, an essential component to the federal housing safety net for people in need. It also implements funding for self-sufficiency and coordinator programs and public housing fund operating capital funds and choice neighborhoods. The Trump administration budget request, but included in HUD's 2013 budget, which requests $250 million for the program. Ooh. Interesting. He's not saying that they're gonna do anything. He's just kind of stating what these offices are. And what he chooses to elaborate on is interesting, to say the least. Mind you, this is a man that believes that homelessness is a state of mind and self-determination should be a thing amongst individuals in order to get themselves out of poverty, and that the government shouldn't overstep. Again, it's very interesting what he's choosing to focus on. He's being really smart in the sense that, like, he's not outright stating opinions like some of the other authors. He's definitely towing the line with this chapter, and it's very interesting to watch because Ben Carson is a figure who has had to toe the line with his whole ass party, even when he was running for president in 2016. It's just something to think about. Governmental mortgage decision headed by the Senate confirmed president and executive and vice president. 2 million federal guarantees. There is absolutely nothing interesting here. He's just kind of giving an educational background of all these offices that his department manages and how they fit in the grand scheme of things, which you can read for yourself. But again, he is towing the line with this chapter and really not trying to ruffle any feathers, which is very fucking interesting for Project 2025. Because I feel like Project 2025 was made to ruffle feathers and distract voters in the first place. Because even with the appointees being appointed,
this is gonna hurt me a lot worse than it hurts you.
Get her! Tell their husband, they're getting her. Stop that! Stop that! Oh my God! Oh my God! Shane!
I don't think they've read this document.
A conniving...
What? That's her mother! Oh! Stephanie struck her mother down!
Aside from Russ Vought, who was appointed recently to the current administration, and guess what? After I'm done reading this, I will go back to certain chapters from Russ Vought and the Department of Education because I feel like there's things that I haven't quite elaborated on that I feel like I should, especially with Russ Vought being in an appointed position in our government right now. However, today our focus is Ben Carson and how he is towing the line in this chapter and doing his best not to ruffle any feathers. A few conservative administration can and should implement the following reforms, focus on both people and processes. The implementation of these reforms simply requires courageous political leadership across HUD's key appointed positions. There it is. Now he's getting into the bullet points of what he thinks should get done partway through his chapter. First day and first year administrative reforms. The HUD political leadership should immediately assign all delegated powers to politically appointed PDAS, DAS, and other office leadership positions, change any current leadership positions into political or non-career appointed positions, and the use of senior executive services transfers to install motivated and aligned leadership. Very interesting. The president should issue an executive order. Again, someone who wants an executive order day one or year one. He's at least broadening his expectations, unlike some of these other authors who have wildly unrealistic expectations. The president should issue an executive order making HUD security member the Committee of Foreign Investment in the U.S., which will gain broader oversight of authorities to address foreign threats, particularly in China, with oversight of foreign ownership of real estate and both rental ownership of market single-family housing, which trillions of real estate secured across HUD's portfolio. This is interesting and also very fucking dangerous. In order to make it in this country, like, you need to have a business. And foreigners know that. Chinese foreigners know that. Asian foreigners know that. People from India know that. And so they come in and they start businesses, whether it be corner stores, grocery stores, food chains, whatever. He is saying that the government should oversee who is buying property in America to make sure that there isn't any sort of foreign conflict. Now, with the panic of war coming towards us, and it will, this is going to be disastrous. This is going to be absolutely fucking disastrous, because what's to stop them from sending people to camps, taking over your business, and saying that, oh, well, your business isn't legit because you're a foreign citizen and you have property. That's a no-no. Then, and this is an interesting dynamic with him saying that homelessness is a state of mind, and yet causing foreigners who trying to make businesses here, forcing them into poverty because they can't own their own businesses. What do you want? Foreign slaves? Do you want foreign wage slaves constantly working for you and never owning their own businesses? This is a very interesting concept, Mr. Carson. Very interesting. Security should initiate HUD task force to politically appointed personnel to identify and reverse all actions taken by a Biden administration to advance progressive ideology. Again, what is so wrong? What's so wrong with being a little progressive? Don't you like that soup? Don't you like that progressive soup? It has low carbs and low in fat. Come on, dude. I'm joking, of course. He's actually just being an asshole when it comes to that. Office of Security and Leadership and Office of General Counsel should conduct through renewal of all sub-regulatory guidance that is instituted outside the Administrative Procedure Act. Additionally, departmental leadership should, semicolon, and then we go off this bullet point into a numbered list that goes down to number 4. Number 1, immediately end Biden administration's property appraisal and valuation equality, PAVE, policies to reverse any Biden administration's actions to threaten and undermine the integrity of real estate appraisals. Interesting. Repeal climate change initiative. No climate change for you, he says. Repeal affirmatively furthering fair housing, AFFH, regulation reinstituted under the Biden administration, and any other uses of special purpose credit authorities to further equality. What's so wrong with furthering equality, Mr. Ben Carson? Are you afraid that foreigners and fags are going to own all the property and you're going to have nothing? What's wrong? Eliminate new housing supply fund. Well, then, then we're just not going to build new houses? We're going to just work with the current real estate we got? I mean, for housing and development, I mean, wouldn't developing housing be a priority? Or is that not your job? Office of Security should renounce proposed regulation to put forward under the Trump administration that would prohibit non-citizens, including all mixed status families, from living all federally assisted housing. There it is. There it is. You're just afraid of mixed nationality families? And I mean, if this were implemented, a lot of conservatives' foreign wives would be bye-bye. I mean, does anybody think about what they fucking type anymore? Like, although in his case, in his defense, he's probably just copying pasting things from other things, which just kind of seems like what his deal is with this. I feel like they made him rush this chapter just to slap his name on this project, which has been like career suicide for half the authors and career boosting for the other half. It's been very interesting. HUD's obligations include providing housing to American citizens in need. HUD reforms must ensure alignment with those reforms implemented by federal agencies where immigration status impacts public programs. There it is. They're gonna be judging you. I mean, all of this really screams paranoia for the upcoming wars. It does. The fact that they're banning abortion, they want more babies to send out to wars, they want to make sure housing is more controlled, and trying to decide who gets home ownership and who doesn't, which doesn't fucking sound like freedom to me. It sounds like fucking communism, but whatever, bitch, go off. Local welfare organizations, not federal government, should step up to provide welfare for housing of non-citizens. Local welfare organizations. Again, they're making this not the federal government's problem, but more of a state's problem, which is a very interesting turn. Secretary should execute regulatory and sub-regulatory guidance actions across HUD programs. That would guidance actions across HUD programs applicable to relevant stakeholders that would restrict program eligibility when admission would threaten the protection of life and health of individuals that fail to encourage upward mobility and economic advancement through household self-sufficiency. Were admissible. Permissible regulatory action, HUD should implement reforms reducing the impact of anti-marriage bias in housing assistance programs? I didn't know there was an anti-marriage bias. Strengthen work and non-readiness for requirements. Implement maximum term limits for residents of PBRA and TBRA programs. And housing first policies so that the department prioritizes mental health and substance abuse issues before jumping into permanent interventions in homelessness. Notwithstanding administration reforms, Congress should enact legislation that protects life and eliminates provisions for federal housing and welfare benefits policies that discourage work, marriage, and meaningful paths of upward economic mobility. Ask someone who is fucking married if getting married is upward mobility financially to them, because they're going to tell you first thing, as soon as you're married, that's like going financially sideways, not financially up. Not everyone's gonna have a motherfucking Cinderella story, Mr. Carson. Not everyone's gonna have a motherfucking Cinderella story. There will be prenups and shit, and people that will safeguard their own wealth despite their partner. These are a lot of things that aren't being taken into account, and we're just assuming that all married people are good people, which is quite the leap. But then again, he is from this heterosexual community, so he does see them as his own people. I can see where he's going with this. He does want to help disadvantaged Americans to an extent, but he wants them to focus on prioritizing mental health and substance abuse, which has been like a criticism of these things. But then again, how would you implement that federally? That's the biggest question, because a lot of this stuff is a state's thing. The states usually take care of these housing situations and the mental health and programs and drug counseling and all that. That's usually a state thing. And so what he's trading, he's like, immigrants, that's a state's problem. Ooh, but like drug prevention and making sure people get housing or don't get housing based on these certain criteria, oh, well, that should be a federal thing. And so he's doing this trade-off of responsibilities between federal and local governments. It is interesting. Would it get implemented? I don't know. It really depends on whose hands he's shaking, because God, we're living in a timeline. Oh my God. When Dr. Oz is in charge of a government department, you know America is motherfucking cooked. That's the real Wizard of Oz, okay? Just take some of Dr. Oz's magic beans, okay? You don't got a COVID mask? Hey, get a fucking bandana. Oh. Blah, blah, blah. Data collection. Meh. Leadership that should increase mortgage insurance premium for all products above a 20-year term and maintain MIP for all products below a 20-year terms and all refinances. FHA should encourage wealth-building home ownership opportunities, which can be accomplished best through shorter duration mortgages. Ideally, Congress would contemplate on fundamental revision of FHA's statutory restriction of single-family housing mortgage insurance for first-time home buyers. This would include support from HUD leadership. Restriction of single-family housing mortgage insurance for first-time home buyers. What do you got against single mothers? What do you got against single fathers? Heaven forbid a relationship doesn't work out. Why is that the government's business? Why is it the government's business if someone is fucking single or not? Why are you going to restrict them housing? That kid still needs a house. That kid still needs a home. That kid needs to go to school. But you saying that that's not your responsibility? But married couples that have two incomes, or theoretically would have two incomes to take care of the kid and more eyes to help the kid, you're giving them all the assistance, but the single parent is left out in the dust? That's kind of fucked up, dude. But these are your policies, so whatever. Revisiting loan limit determinations. Moving home of equally Moving the home of equally conversion mortgages program once again to its own special risk insurance fund, providing statutory flexibility, shorter term products to principal earlier and faster. Amortize. Damn, he is using some real estate language. He is getting surgical with this. HUD Securities should move to HUD Real Estate Center. Retain budget authority and modernization. Yada, yada, yada. Long-term policy reform considerations. HUD's efforts have yielded mixed results at best, even today, more than half a century after Congress put enforcement of so-called fair housing hands of HUD's bureaucracy. Implementation of this policy is muddled by repeated application of affirmative race-based policies. What you got? You got a problem with affirmative race-based policies? Are you another champion of the white people? Because the last guy, the Colombian, he definitely saw himself as a brown champion for the light-skinned people. And this is getting into that territory, I ain't gonna lie, Mr. Carson. Also, a production mandate for HUD's housing portfolio has been warned for decades, with the department effectively working to maintain public housing portfolio since the late 90s. That Faircloth Amendment and public housing portfolio. Longer-term reforms of HUD rental assistance programs should encourage choice and competition for renters and encourage participation of by landlords where appropriate. Interesting. Encourage all non-elderly, able-bodied adults to move forward, to move toward self-sufficiency. There it is. He does believe in self-sufficiency. He believes homelessness is a state of mind and you should get out of it, which is an interesting take, but one that really shouldn't be implemented in public policy for several fucking reasons. Obviously, using government vouchers such as programs to expand housing choice options is not with its downsides. The turn towards mobility vouchers constitutes an abundant of America's public housing stock. Efforts to increase competition in public housing market, not just to come at an expense of local autonomy, but the ability of cities, towns, neighborhoods, and communities for those short of housing to allow freedom of association and self-government is on the local level is possible, must remain primary considerations for any conservative effort to increase competition. All right. My phone is starting to hate me, so I gotta wrap this up. Luckily, Ben Carson's chapter is actually really short, and so I'm almost at the end of it anyway. Let's discuss what he says. American homeowners and citizens know that what is best interest of their American neighborhoods and communities, locally rather than the federal government, should have a final say in zoning laws and regulations, and current administration should oppose efforts to weaken single-family zoning. Along with the same lines, Congress should propose tax credits and renovation and house repair to housing stock and rural areas so that more Americans are able to access the American dream of home ownership. I'm not against this. However, the strange focus of single families is interesting. Additionally, enhanced subsidiary authorities, local authorities should extend to prioritizing federal rental assistance to subsidiaries, emphasize choice and mobility housing vouchers over static, site-based subsidiaries that provide authority with maximum flexibility. This is where it gets interesting. Long-term view of HUD's future must include maintaining strong financial operations and reliable reporting to run the $50 billion per year agency. Before the Trump administration, HUD effectively did not have a chief financial officer, a CFO, for 8 years. That alone is very fucking interesting for a department that is supposed to have things ready for it and money flowing through it. Who is watching the money if you don't even have anyone watching the money? Very interesting. All right, and in the final paragraph, he insists that Congress break up HUD functions and let most of it go to local governments, as well as moving departments that are under his jurisdiction, like the housing of Indian Housing Department programs should be moved to the Department of Interior, even though in other chapters, the Department of Interior moved Indian Housing and Indian Services to another department. Again, we got some mismatching going on. And then to transfer low guarantee programs to the SBA and moving rental assistance and mortgage assistance to other programs such as Home and Housing Finance Agency. Again, he is saying a whole lot of nothing in this chapter as compared to other chapters, but what he does say is very interesting and very telling. When we come back, we will be on page 550, and we're going to be talking about the Department of Interior, which he just pawned off some things to the Department of Interior. So this is going to be very interesting how much this author did or didn't read Ben Carson's chapter. So we'll see how the Department of Interior handles that. The Department of Interior already handles a lot of Indian affairs already. So it's going to be an interesting development moving forward. But yeah, as far as where this is all going, as far as who is getting snubbed from Project 2025 and who is being ascended into office, it's going to be a very telling few months. Hell, it's going to be a very telling year. I think people really misunderstand why I do this and why I do this series. I do this series because I hate the fucking Heritage Foundation because they ruined my family. My lesbian mothers didn't want anything other than to have a normal fucking life. And the Heritage Foundation threw a wrench in that in every turn they could. And I'm not doing this for the left. And I'm not doing this for the right. I'm doing this for me because I fucking hate these people that are turning around with the same bullshit and nonsense that kept my family down from succeeding financially. So there's that. Maybe if we had half the programs and services that we need, I wouldn't be in this mess. But yeah. All right. So, well, this is Doflix, and this is what a clean room looks like for all you other streamers that don't clean your fucking room. You're welcome. Today, we are preferring...
I'm sick of y'all shit!
You. Get